What comes to mind when I recite the following passage? After spending a day exploring the beautiful sights and sounds of crowded New York City streets, Jane discovered her wallet was missing. If pickpocket popped in your brain, then you're quite normal. Nobel Peace Prize award-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman outlined in his book Thinking Fast and Slow this idea of our brains needing coherence. In other words, things must make sense to us. Okay, we know that. But did you know that to achieve coherence, we will go so far as to make things up that might not even be true, but we're okay with it as long as it makes sense. For example, let's say someone walks up to you and in a very neutral tone of voice and no expression on their face says, "That's an interesting outfit you're wearing today," and walks off. We're not okay with that. We will then start to make up things to create a coherent story. We might say, well, you know what? 2 weeks ago, my kid was over at their house for a play date and threw a brick through the window. They're still mad at me about that. Therefore, they're making a snarky comment about my clothes. We do it all the time because of our need for coherence, for things to make sense. And this is a problem when it comes to faith. Because in case you hadn't noticed, not everything that comes out of God's mouth to us makes sense. Just a quick scan of the Bible shows us many examples. God told Abram, "I want you to leave your house, your family, your income, and I want you to start walking and go to a land that I will show you. It'll make sense when you get there at some point, but just go." That's all Abram had to go on. There was no coherence that could have been extrapolated from that word from God. How about when Jesus is looking at tens of thousands of people and he turns to his disciples, the people are hungry, and Jesus says, you feed the congregation. And they're like, all we have are 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. How are we supposed to feed all of those people? Not everything that comes out of God's mouth to us is coherent. And Paul explains this in Romans chapter 8, verses 5 through 8. When Paul said, you know what? The natural mind does not understand the mind of the Spirit. It is not operating on the same set of laws. Paul even goes on to say, in fact, our natural mind is enmity against God. In other words, our natural mind has a natural dissonance and friction with the mind of the Spirit. How are we supposed to not struggle with our faith whenever we are wired to have this friction with the mind of God? And that's what faith is, though. Faith requires us sometimes to look and not stagger at the promises of God, as it said in Hebrews 11. Has it ever happened to you? Has God ever spoke something to you that you're like, what in the world is that supposed to mean? How is that supposed to work out? Maybe you were really comfortable in your nice life and you didn't want to move anywhere, and God tells you, move, get up, go, change, make this change in your life. I know when God spoke to me about 10 years ago to start a church, it sounded like the incoherent babblings of a crazy person to my human mind. That's sometimes what faith is overriding that natural mind in us to follow the mind of the Spirit. But you know, that's where the big breakthroughs in our lives are, isn't it? The Bible says in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And it's by faith that the elders or the people, the heroes of the Bible, obtained a good report. It's by faith that the patriarchs of faith saw the amazing things. And I know in my life, the amazing things that I have seen, the breakthroughs that have come about in my life have not come from some human understanding that I came up with. Instead, the breakthroughs I've had have come when God spoke to me. Something that didn't really make a lot of sense. But I was somehow, by His grace, able to override my natural mind and get in touch with the mind of the Spirit. So I encourage you today. What is God speaking to you that doesn't make sense? Are you overriding your natural mind and following the mind of the Spirit? If you do, you just might see that breakthrough that you've been looking for. Be blessed, my friend.